there, my name is Lisa Norton. I am the designer of Night Watchman. So if you're watching this, you might be on month 2 when you're making the Firefly block. So it is paper piece. So if you need a little reminder on how paper piece is made, or if this is your first time, hopefully this little tutorial will help you. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make a copy of your pattern, which is on page 5 and page 6. You have a firefly that is flying one direction and the other direction. So you have 2 paper pieces for those. So after you make your copy, you can make it either on regular copy paper or you can use a newsprint. My favorite is Carol Doak's foundation paper, and the reason why is it tears away so much easier. So you make a copy, and then on the back, you're going to first cut your pieces apart. So these are my 2 pieces that I've cut apart. And your first step is to draw the lines on the back side. The reason you're drawing the lines is so that you have a guide for positioning your fabric. Your fabric will always be positioned on the drawn side, and you'll always sew on the printed side. So I've already pre-cut my fabrics, and I like to arrange my pieces kind of like the layout that it's going to be sewn, so it's easier for me to find the pieces that I want. So this is the body of the firefly, his thorax, wings, and his background. So all those are arranged ready for that piece. And then this half is his head and his background pieces. So I've arranged those so that it's easy for me to find what I'm sewing. So you're going to look for the numbers on your paper, and you're going to start with 1, then move to 2, then 3, then 4, 5, and then when you add your last piece, 6, this piece is done. When it is done, you'll trim on this outside line. Don't trim on this inside line, that's your seam line. Always trim on the outside line when you have all of your pieces completed. So when you start, you choose your head fabric. Now, fortunately, this one, there's not a right side or a wrong side, so it won't be difficult to make this mistake. But you'll always want the very first fabric to be right side up. You're going to position it right in the middle and then anchor it with a pin.
They're in the other drawer. All the way back.
There we go. Pins now ready. And we're positioning again on the drawn side. You see I've got it right through the head right there. So our next piece to sew on is this itty bitty A2, and the A2 is this fabric here, nice and big. So if you're going to position your fabric, it's hard to tell where it's going to be. So I'm going to grab, shoot, Laura, do we even have the add a quarter ruler? Quick, get my tools. So what you're going to do is, in order to find where to lay it out, you're going to actually pre-cut that line. So you're going to want an add a quarter ruler and a piece of cardstock. So you're going to flip your paper over, find the line between A1 and A2, lay your postcard on that line and fold it backwards. Put your add a quarter ruler and then pre-cut that edge. Now when you line up your next piece, it's going to be much easier. So right sides together, and I usually audition it to see if it's going to cover the full amount plenty, so we're not going to be worried there. And then I'm going to just reposition my pin to hold both pieces, and we'll take it to the sewing machine. When you sew, you're only sewing on the line between A1 and A2, nowhere else. Tiny line. Okay, that side is now ready. We just do a little finger press. So number 3 is on the opposite side. So we're going to do the same thing where I'm going to find the line between 1 and 3, lay down my postcard, fold it back on that crease, get my add a quarter ruler, knock it against that edge, and then pre-cut my 1/4 inch seam so that when I flip it over and I grab my next piece, it'll make it much easier to line up. So I line my pieces right sides together, and then I can sew on that line. I've got an extra thread here. Now I can open that and just give it a little finger press. Then we flip it over and we're going to find our next one. Our next is A4. So same thing again. We're going to lay the card on the line between A2 and A4. Fold it back. Use your add a quarter inch ruler. Pre-cut that edge. And we're ready to add our A4. So now this can be a little tricky. You see how we've got this piece here that's not at an angle? So what makes life easier is if you pre-cut that angle. So we're going to fold it back so that it matches that angle just like that. And you're going to give it a little press. Take it back to your cutting mat. Go about 1/4 inch past that crease. Oops. Doggone. And there we go. Now our angle's cut, so it's going to make it a lot easier to position. Just like that. So we'll give a little audition. It's going to work just great. We take it to the sewing machine and sew it on. You're going to sew just on the line between A2 and A4. Give it a little finger press, and that piece is ready. So we'll do the same thing on this side, or flip it over, find your line between A3 and A5. Add your 1/4 inch. We've got the same issue where you're going to have an angle here again. So in order to figure out your angle, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to fold it back, match that cut, give it just a little crease, and then you're going to cut your seam allowance just a little bit beyond that. If I had my right ruler, I wouldn't be using this. And we're going to match that up. It's going to look great. We line those two pieces on, and you do right sides together. Make sure that's going to work just fine, and we'll sew that on. I'll have to ask Michael how to do that. Okay, ready?
Just filming.
So used to the automatic thread cutter. There we go. Okay, now those two angles were the tough part for this paper piecing. The rest is pretty straightforward. So you would give this one a little press too. It's always good to use the iron. It makes life a little easier. So when you're going to add your next piece, you're going to do the same thing where you find your next line. It's going to be between A5, A4, and it'll be A6. You fold that back. You're going to pre-cut your edge. And then you're going to add your last piece. This piece was the 6-inch square that was cut once on the diagonal, so it'll position really easily. Just audition your piece to make sure it's going to fit. And then when that's all done, you're going to just sew on the 1/4 inch seam, and then away you go. Thank you.